New York Giants have a plan at quarterback. Whether it's the right one is up for debate, but do the Giants need Russell Wilson to be their Mr. Unlimited while armed with the number 3 pick? And as the seats in the game of QB musical chairs continue to fill up, there's at least one quarterback without a team. Where will Aaron Rodgers go? National panel, you ready? Let's go around the horn.
Let's ride.
You still saying that in 2025, the year of our Lord? We're still calling it Mr. Unlimited?
Russell Wilson video at some point. We know that, right?
The latest quarterback domino fell in New York Tuesday night. Russell Wilson headed to the Giants on a one-year deal worth up to $21 million with $10.5 guaranteed. 36-year-old projects to be the G-Men starting quarterback days after the team added Jameis Winston to the roster. So, Mina, I'm starting with you here. With the QB room looking like it does right now, could the Giants still go for Shedeur Sanders in the draft at number 3?
Yeah, this is the big question coming out of this signing, and my answer is yes, it's plausible when you consider the money. Let's start there. A combined salary between Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and if they were to take a quarterback at 3 would be about $21 million, which is not a lot of money to spend at the quarterback position. That's about how much Justin Fields alone is making with the Jets, and that's near the bottom of starting quarterback salaries. You could also argue that they might consider taking a quarterback, Sanders perhaps, and then trading one of these guys, Jameis Winston. All of that makes sense on paper, but the process to me does not make sense, which is to say it would not make sense for them to bring in 2 veteran backups and draft Shedeur Sanders. That feels, frankly, messy. I don't understand that from a development standpoint, and the fact that they did sign Russ to this contract to me, makes me think either they don't want Shedeur Sanders or they think the Browns are taking him with pick 2. Opens up the possibility of taking Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter at pick 3, both 2 excellent players. I find that far more likely than the idea that they're going to take a quarterback.
So Harry Lyles Jr., Mina Kimes is saying too many cooks potentially if you were to add Shedeur Sanders to the mix. Do you still see the Giants as in play for a rookie quarterback at number 3?
I don't think so. And I think because of this Russell Wilson signing and, again, the price of it, it seems like he is clearly going to be their starter. Jameis Winston is clearly on a backups contract. And so because of that, I think if you are the New York Giants, let's say that the Browns do take Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward goes number 1. And even if the Browns take Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, you need to take one of those 2 players, because to me, those are the 2 players in this draft that are cannot miss prospects. And your team, I think they're projected to win 4.5 games this year. That's the over-under on that. Like, this football team still needs a lot of work. So draft one of the guys that you are sure of, and then draft your quarterback in 2026 when you can actually put things around him and allow him to succeed, especially if you are not sure about a guy like Shedeur Sanders.
So Harry Lyles Jr. saying the March for Arch in 2026 is on. Marcel, are you looking at that the same way?
Yeah, I am. The one wrinkle that I could see, though, is if the Browns do take Shedeur Sanders and Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are on the clock or on the board at 3, could they maybe, or excuse me, if they don't take Shedeur Sanders and he's still on the board at 3, could you maybe trade down, get some offensive line help, add another pick in that first round and grab more receiver help? Because that is still a major issue for this Giants team, is there are no skill players. Who is Russell Wilson throwing to besides Malik Neighbors? Darius Slayton's there at $12 million a year. Beyond that, there's nobody that really keeps a defensive coordinator up at night. But in order for Russ to even succeed here, they have to fix that offensive line, and they have to get him somebody to throw to.
And Kevin Clark, riddle me this, because Joe Schoen, Brian Daboll may be looking at this saying, let's throw everything at the wall and see if it sticks. They could be out of jobs next year if they don't get this right. Is it possible that they view it that way, to add Shedeur Sanders, let him sit behind some veterans for a while, and then start him at some point this season to justify the pick?
It's really hard for me to put myself in the heads of those 2 guys. By the way, both of them are probably going to get fired in just a couple months because of the process that's gone on the last few months. By the way, I'm no huge fan of tanking, but tanking sounds pretty good right now if you're the New York Giants and you're thinking about December and how you could have had Cam Ward. All of a sudden you're looking at the 3rd pick in a 2-quarterback draft and you're considering all your options. I don't know why they made this signing now. It feels to me like they're out for quarterback at number 3 because it's not like Russell Wilson had some robust market. Remember, he reached out to them to set up the meeting. That's not a guy who screams, I've got a lot of options. So the idea they've already signed Jameis, they've already signed Russell Wilson, they already have Tommy DeVito to rally the fan base or whatever it is Tommy DeVito does in the tri-state area, make appearances, local appearances at cell phone stores or whatever. For me, I just don't understand why you take a third pick quarterback now and enter him into that. That's going to upset Russell Wilson, upset Jameis Winston. None of this makes sense. I don't know what to say. Everybody's fired.
Mina Kimes back in.
I love that point about the GM and the head coach being in the hot seat because, you asked, could they still take a quarterback? That would be one of the reasons why. They're so desperate to save their jobs. They're just throwing everything at the quarterback position, trying to create some excitement with the fan base. Let's see who sticks between three of these guys. But that wouldn't be a good process. And I think that's why it was debatable, the fact that they kept both of them. Maybe one of them would have been fine, but both of them, because when you do that, when you have a coach and GM on the hot seat, sometimes their incentives are not aligned with what's best for the football team, what's best in the long term. And the best thing in the long term, I think, would be to take a view, we need to make this entire roster better, not just worry about the quarterback position.
And at the Horn, Harry Lyles, last word to you.
The best news in all of this for the Giants is that none of their decision-making is going to be caught on camera and in 4K for all of us to digest. So that's a win for them in and of itself.
And Kevin Clark, I guess we have more time. You're back in here, too.
The reason you fire Daboll and Shane last January, just 3 months ago, is because you don't want them making decisions now based on protecting their jobs. You needed a clean start. Bringing them back for 1 year on the hot seat was always going to be a disaster.
ESPN Bet put out their win totals for the 2025 season yesterday. Giants came in at 3.5. That's the league low. The Russell Wilson signing raised it by 1 to 4.5. We have been horned, and we will move on. A lot has been made about who QB1 is or is not in Minnesota. Earlier in the week, J.J. McCarthy said he has not been told he is atop of the depth chart. Today, GM Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah was asked about the Vikings QB situation and whether they would rule out Aaron Rodgers.
For me to sit here and say that, anything's 100% forever, that's just not the job, right? When we pull the resources we did to draft JJ and you go through that long process and all those things, I can't stand up here and say that's the outcome we want, and that's the outcome we're headed towards. Right now, given all our scenario planning, we're happy with our room.
Typical GM answer, leaving the door open right now. They love that phrase. Kevin Clark, how did you hear Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah?
Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, take notes. This is a sound process at the quarterback position. They did not overcommit to Sam Darnold. They let him walk. They are meeting with Aaron Rodgers, but not committing to it. They're exhausting all avenues, and it's going to end up where it always should have ended up. J.J. McCarthy, a year into his career, is going to be QB1. I think J.J. McCarthy with Kevin O'Connell is going to be better than anything that Aaron Rodgers could give them in 2025. I think they can use the middle of the field really, really well. I think there's a really high floor on him. The only knock against him is he didn't play a lot of football at Michigan compared to a lot of these guys who come in now, like Michael Penix or Bo Nix, who spend 30 years in college. He's got to play a lot of reps. That means no competition, first team reps, tons of preseason. Let's go.
Marcel, how did you hear the GM of the Minnesota Vikings?
I heard him say that they like their quarterback room. So I made this comprehensive list of the Vikings quarterback room, and it's that. And you see, there is Brett Rypien right down here as well. So of course he's the starter. I know they don't have what's understood doesn't always have to be explained. Good on him for having a good enough head on his shoulders to not assume that he is the starting quarterback. But when you look at that room, he is the guy. You spent the 10th overall pick on him. This offense is ready-made for a rookie quarterback, which he essentially still is, considering he missed all of last season. If you don't trust that guy to go out there with this offense and succeed, then why did you take him?
Marcel, you bring up your depth chart there, and it's J.J. McCarthy, and then really nobody else. So like Harry Lyles, when you hear the GM talk about leaving the door open, potentially at some point for a veteran quarterback, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or someone else, would that not benefit your effective rookie quarterback in what's going to be a season where they're coming off 14 wins? They're not trying to take a step back.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the important thing here is they've put themselves in a position where they really can't lose, right? Because this is still a guy that was picked in the top 10. The most important thing that they need to do this offseason, in my opinion, which they did, was to tighten up that offensive line, improve that unit, especially if you're going to be throwing this guy out there and playing him. The benefit of all of this is, yes, you might still be able to pick an Aaron Rodgers and throw him in there and have J.J. McCarthy learn from him for maybe a year and hope you get some good football out of Aaron Rodgers still, but not all your chips are in that basket. And so to me, the Vikings have put themselves in a position where not only J.J. McCarthy can succeed no matter what he does, but also they might have other options available to them. I think there are some other teams in the NFL that could perhaps learn from that model, like, I don't know, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And Mina Kimes.
Yeah, I think rather than judging the GM or the quarterback by the words, you just look at their actions since the season ended. They could have kept Sam Darnold. They could have franchised him. The contract that he signed with Seattle, by the way, was not very large. They let him walk. They have not been reported to be in serious talks with any other veteran quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers is really the only one who's been linked with them, and listening to him talk about it, it doesn't frankly sound that serious, and it sounds like they're just waiting for the possibility of maybe adding him later in the season if they need to. Everything that the Minnesota Vikings have done suggests that J.J. McCarthy is the plan moving forward, and I believe it to be true.
And sometimes it's just semantics of not naming a guy QB1 before he's effectively earned it. I covered the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams stepped on the campus effectively at the facility. The first day was named QB1. Jaden Daniels had to wait a little bit for that. Maybe that's the route that the Minnesota Vikings are going to go too. Obviously, there is a remaining spot here in the game of quarterback musical chairs. The Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback position and Aaron Rodgers staring out into the ocean. The wait continues. There's your horn. Here's your break. Buy or sell coming up next. More NFL. Drake May finally has a number one receiver after the Patriots signed Stefon Diggs to a 3-year deal worth $26 million guaranteed. Diggs is back in the AFC East after his lone season with the Texans was cut short due to a torn ACL in late October, but the 31-year-old reportedly going to be ready for New England's season opener. Mina, how much of an upgrade is Diggs for the Patriots?
Well, considering the fact that Stefon Diggs had as many first downs in half a season as any Patriots wide receiver did over the course of an entire season, I would say this is an upgrade. It obviously comes with risk. He's on the wrong side of 30 coming off of the ACL. But if he's anything like he was in Houston, and he was actually quite good, he gives May a reliable target, particularly in the short and intermediate parts of the field. Now, that said, Patriots are not done at receiver. They still need size and speed on the perimeter. That has to happen in the draft. But I do like this pickup. It was much needed.
Harry Lyles Jr., does this preclude them from maybe adding at receiver in the first round? They do draft at 4. Maybe it's a little early. How do you see how the Diggs addition affects what they do in April?
Yeah, I do love this receiver class. I think that this needs to be a first step and not only the step because, again, Mina mentioned he's on the other side of 30. He's going to be 32 coming off of an ACL. The Patriots haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver since 2019, which seems absurd. So I think that this is a good, consistent first step. You're giving Drake May a good target, but this needs to be, again, not the only thing that they do. Otherwise, it's absolutely not going to solve their problem.
6 straight 1,000-yard seasons for Stefon Diggs before the ACL tear last year. Marcel, how do you see this affecting Drake May's development, finally having that number one option?
This is what every team who takes a rookie quarterback needs to do. You have to get him somebody reliable to throw the ball to. I mean, Josh Allen wasn't a rookie, but you can't argue that the trajectory of Allen's career did not drastically change when they added Diggs to that roster. But Stefon, he averaged twice as many catches as any Patriots receiver did last year, twice as many yards per game. The ACL tear is a little bit scary at this age, but his game was never based on explosiveness. He is a crispy route runner. This is a dream come true for Drake May. Now it gets interesting, though, because depending on how the board shakes out there at number 4, like, do you like one of these receivers enough to take him at 4, a guy like Matthew Golden or Ted McMillan, or do you trade down, acquire more draft capital, and still get one of those guys later on in the first round? They can't be done.
Yeah, Kevin Clark, answer that question. What do they do at the draft at 4?
At 4, I mean, obviously wide receivers off the board there. There's no wide receiver, I think. I don't think McMillan goes that high. I think you take whoever of Carter or Hunter is available and you turn the pick in immediately and you build around that. This roster is basically devoid of talent. Mina mentioned Douglas, it was not particularly great last year. It was an inefficient receiving core. All of a sudden, Diggs comes in, instant credibility, helps out Drake May. I mean, I couldn't believe, Harry mentioned the stat, I couldn't believe the Patriots haven't had a 1,000-yard receiver in 5 years. You can accidentally have 1,000 yards in the league right now, and the Patriots haven't been able to do it. This works for both sides for me. Diggs obviously wanted another payday. That's the reason he wanted free agency last year. He restructured his contract when he went to the Texans the other year. And the Patriots just need NFL guys, so this is good.
Buy or sell to LeBron James stopped by the Thunderdome for a visit with Pat McAfee's show and had this to say about what it would look like if Giannis Antetokounmpo played in a different era.
You trying to tell me Giannis wouldn't be able to play an NBA game in the 70s? Giannis Antetokounmpo would have 250 points in a game in the 70s.
Harry, you buying or selling that?
I am buying his broader point that he would have a lot of success in that era, yes, but I don't think that's a particularly hot take. Also, can we agree that LeBron kind of really meant himself and not Giannis in this, right? Like, I think he wanted to say that and just wasn't willing to go that far. But look, I do think it is absolutely natural that as the progression of human existence and life goes, athletes are better performing. They know how to take better care of themselves. Guys aren't ripping cigarettes after games. So, like, yeah, Giannis probably would have dominated in the 70s.
I don't know if Bob Lanier would have anything to say about that, Marcel, but 250 seems a little hyperbolic. How do you see it?
Courtney, we call him the Greek freak, not the Greek regular human, not the Greek meek or the Greek average guy. He is dominating athletically in the most athletically dominant era in NBA history. We talk about the shorts length when we talk about 70s basketball before we mention the athleticism in the league at that point. 250 is obviously a little bit of an exaggeration, but he's dropping 50 a night with ease if he gets dropped in 1973.
Kevin Clark?
Yeah, I have a question before we get into this. Who's saying that Giannis would have not succeeded in the 70s? Who's out there? What podcast said, no way could Giannis have played well in the 1970s? No one is on the other side of this argument. Obviously, Giannis would have been amazing. That's how time works. The sport evolves. The athletes get bigger, stronger, faster. They understand the game. They unlock different ways to play. They get more efficient. That's what sports is. I am selling LeBron making this argument against anybody on earth. I am so tired of comparing eras like this. I'm over it.
I was about to say, on this show, we usually are banned from comparing eras. Mina Kimes, I'm going to break the rule for you right now here. How would Giannis look in the 1970s?
Well, I would argue that it depends on something because we're introducing multiverse theory here, right? Like if Giannis from today went back to the 1970s, of course he would be dominant. He would put Wilt numbers with his size and skill and athleticism and training. But if we're talking about Giannis born in the 1970s, then I think you could argue maybe he wouldn't be as dominant because he wouldn't have today's modern medicine, and also nobody would have found him, in Greece to begin with. So maybe, Kevin, that's what LeBron is thinking about here. I'm just throwing that out there.
All right, there is our horn. Harry Lyles Jr. and Kevin Clark. I'm sure that if we were doing this show in the 1970s, you probably could have dropped triple digits too. But today, you fell just a little bit short. Saying goodbye. Showdown coming up next. Mina and Marcel. The Warriors mustered a measly 86 points in a loss to the Miami Heat in Jimmy Butler's return to South Beach last night. There was a tribute video, boos from the home crowd whenever Butler touched the ball, and a warning shot delivered from Butler to Heat president Pat Riley. TNT sideline reporter Taylor Rooks said that Butler told her pregame, quote, "I have nothing to say to Pat, and Pat better have nothing to say to me," end quote. Mina, overall, how did you view that return?
Yeah, this was a big womp womp for Jimmy Butler in particular. He had nothing to say and also kind of nothing to show for it. Only 11 points, one free throw. The entire team was bad, but he, to me, had a disappointing performance.
Yeah, and also, like, it was a weird aura to it, right? Because this isn't Dwayne Wade coming back home. This is not a homegrown talent. It's a guy who was there for 5 years and really soured it all by the way he left. I think this was an NBA Finals-esque moment for the Heat to beat him and shut him up a little bit. They did exactly that, and they're being exactly as petty as they should be on social media. Good for them.
I still don't think either side has had enough time to grieve each other or miss each other. So there's that, I guess. We split the point and we move on. College coaching carousel news in college basketball. Sean Miller officially headed to Texas to coach the Longhorns. His replacement at Xavier, Richard Pitino, giving us not one but two Patinos in the Big East. A move that will pit him against dad Rick Pitino in St. John's twice a season. Marcel, do you see this as more of a good hire by Xavier or a fun hire for the yearly Pitino versus Pitino matchup?
Courtney, first of all, I feel like we need to celebrate more cool things in sports. And a father and son coaching against each other at the highest level of college basketball, that's a cool thing in sports. It is worthy of celebration. But also, he deserves the job. He turned New Mexico into a 20-win-a-year type of team. Congrats to him.
Yeah, I think this is both fun and good. It's good because Marcel alluded to this before. He arrived in New Mexico. They only had 6 wins, brought them up to 22 immediately, has improved that record every year. I think this is a good hire. He does have to improve his winning record against his dad, though, who hasn't beat there.
Marcel Louis-Jacques, go ahead, take the FaceTime.
In 1 week, I'm talking to the ladies of America. In 1 week, if your boyfriends, your husbands are suddenly unavailable, check the game room because Verdansk is back on April 2nd. Everybody's favorite Call of Duty map returns. This is a nostalgic ode to something that really kept us sane during an insane time in 2020. Finally, the devs at Call of Duty have listened to their fan base. I'm excited. I know Harry Lyles is excited. I know he's going to yell at me when I am not on when I say I'm going to be on. But trust me, my brother, I am going to be there just like millions of other men across the country and women.
About to say, I know that you two are going to have a whole lot of fun with that coming up next. We may not see them on Around the Horn because they're going to be busy playing the game. You won't see us for 23 and a half hours, but we will be back on E2. After that, see you tomorrow.
I'm going to be there.